Good morning. Bom dia, tudo bem? Wonderful to see you. Especially warm welcome if you're here for the first time. We're going to look at some words of Jesus this morning. Spend a little bit of time listening to his voice, seeing what he might want to say to us. So we're going to look at a passage in John chapter 10, starting at verse 14. If you like to use phones or if you've got a Bible with you, you can use, but the words are going to come up on the screen. We're going to look at John chapter 10, starting at verse 14. If we can have the Bible passage ready. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. The words of Jesus. He says this: I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. This morning I'd like to talk to you about Jesus is the Good Shepherd. Now, do we have any shepherds here this morning? No, I didn't think we would have any. However, the image of a shepherd is such a strong image for us. Having someone in your life who can guide you, can mentor you, can comfort you, can protect you. To me, at least, it sounds a really nice idea to have a shepherd figure in your life. Now, there are many times, many areas of life where I really feel like I need someone like that. And one particular place in my life where I need a kind of shepherd, a guide, is when I get my hair cut. Now, I got my hair cut just over a week ago. I hope you like it. Thank you. But when I go to the hairdressers, it is probably one of the things I fear the most in my life. I don't know what it is about it. I just do not like going. I think it might be something to do with having someone's full attention on me for a prolonged period of time that I just get really awkward. So when they say to me, "What would you like, Ben?" I say, "Shorter." And then when they finish doing my haircut, whatever it looks like, however awful it is, I just say, "Thank you so much," and get out of there as quickly as possible. In fact, this haircut that I got last week, I ran out of the hairdresser so quickly that when I got home, my wife Martha said, "Oh, they've missed quite a few bits," so she got the scissors out and sort of fixed it for me. But what I've realized is my dislike for the hairdressers has spread to being there when other people are getting their haircut. So quite a few years ago at Christmas time, when my son was 3 years old, Christmas Eve, it was Christmas Eve, and we were about to see a lot of family the next day for a Christmas Day lunch. And my wife said to me on Christmas Eve, "Why don't you just go and take Jonah, our son, out for a little trim so he's ready and looking great for the family." Now, Jonah, when he was 3, he had beautiful blonde curly hair. We've got a picture of his blonde curly hair. This is him when he was 3 years old. Now, we went to the hairdressers together, and all I can say is what happened over the next 45 minutes was a bit of a blur. And as you're already aware, I do not like the hairdressers. And so when I returned home later that afternoon, I opened the door to my wife. She'd left her boy with long, beautiful, childlike, curly locks. And this is what he looked like when we came back. Every single curl had gone. And my wife said to me, I'll repeat this word for word. She said to me, "Ben, you have ruined Christmas." It's safe to say that I'm not allowed to take the children for haircuts again. We all need guidance in our lives. Maybe you're here today with a decision looming. Should I take this job or should I not take the job? Should I start this relationship or should I end this relationship? Should I take up this business opportunity or this ministry opportunity? Should I follow this dream? Can I do it? How should I really live my life? Or maybe for you it's a big decision, or maybe it's a small decision, or maybe it's even just the fear of making the wrong decision. What would it look like if you had someone to guide you through life? Well, it's into these kind of questions that the image of the Good Shepherd speaks so powerfully, and I think it speaks so deeply to each one of us. You may be here today, and you may be or you may not be a Christian, but you may well have heard these words from Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I'll fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. We love this. We want this. It touches such a deep need for each of us, that there is one who can guide you to a calm place, that there's one who can provide safety, satisfaction, and peace. And the invitation of Jesus is that he is the Good Shepherd who could lead you in these ways. So this morning I just want us to look at 3 ways we can each discover the Good Shepherd in our lives. Firstly, get to know the shepherd. Get to know the shepherd. There are 2 characters in this teaching that Jesus gives us. There's the shepherd, and then there's the sheep. And I thought I'd give you a photo of a sheep, some sheep, just in case anyone was not sure what we're talking about today. Here are some lovely sheep. Now, sheep they're not the cleverest of animals. In fact, some might say that sheep are stupid. Sheep run away. Sheep get lost. Sheep get sick very often. They get all kinds of horrible illnesses and diseases. Sheep get into trouble. They get stuck in fences. They often fall down into ditches. Sheep are pretty weak and vulnerable. They often get caught by attackers, by dogs or wolves or foxes. And sheep need caring for. You don't get wild sheep. Like animals like dogs or horses, if you let them go, they will run free and they will fend for themselves and find a way to survive. But sheep, if you let a sheep go, it gets a bit confused, it gets lost, it's probably going to eat something that will actually probably kill it. It's vulnerable. Sheep are actually, I discovered that sheep are actually, or you probably know this, they're pack animals. So they will, if one of them leads in a direction, all the others will follow. And I found this news article from Istanbul from a few years ago. And it says this: hundreds of sheep followed their leader, a mixed-up lamb, off a cliff in eastern Turkey, plunging to their deaths this week, while the shepherds looked on in dismay. 400 sheep fell 15 meters to their death in a ravine in Van province near Iran. But those 400 that fell off the cliff, they broke the fall of another 1,100 sheep who followed them off, but actually survived. And shepherds from the Ikaisla village neglected the flock while eating breakfast, leaving their sheep to roam free. The loss to local farmers was estimated at $74,000. That's one expensive breakfast mistake. So when Jesus is talking about sheep, he's talking about us. Does anyone else feel a little bit offended? Well, sheep get a very bad reputation, but I think there's also another way to look at this. Now, sheep are not harmful creatures. They're actually harmless, they're peaceful, they're meek, and they place themselves willingly in submission to the shepherd. So maybe a better word to describe sheep is dependent. To be dependent indicates a relationship. The dependence of the sheep on the shepherd doesn't necessarily point to a problem or a deficiency with the sheep, but it points to the power, the protection, and the provision of the shepherd. Sheep are at peace when they're under the care of a shepherd. Now, God could have chosen any animal maybe to illustrate our relationship with him, but in his wisdom, he chose the humble sheep. He chose a sheep to describe this kind of restful peace that a sheep gets under the good and perfect care of a shepherd. So if the sheep, the other character in the teaching is the shepherd. And the shepherd is the guide for the sheep, the carer, the protector. And in many places and in many cultures, the shepherd will live with the sheep, will sleep alongside the sheep to protect them, to be there for them 24/7. The shepherd is everything for the sheep. And Jesus loves his sheep so dearly. You know, the heart of the Christian faith is that the God of all creation, he loves you and he longs to have a personal relationship with you. Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep. He knows you completely. You are known where you are. Just as the shepherd knows the names of their sheep, they know what they look like, they know where they're positioned, in the same way Jesus knows you. My son Jonah, who I just mentioned, when he was a little bit older, at primary school, he would go to a school where his classroom had a big open, big window, and I could drop him off at the classroom door, and he would go into the classroom, but I could stand outside the classroom and I could look through the window and I could see what he was up to. So I could see him go and put his bag on his peg. I could see him sit down at the desk. I could see him chat at his friends. And I could see him, but he couldn't see me. And when I looked through this window each and every morning, I wasn't stood there thinking, oh, he better sit down and do his work today, or he better be kind to his friends, or he better not misbehave today. No. I looked through the window and I just enjoyed watching him, seeing him, knowing him, delighting in him. And in a much, much far greater way, Jesus knows you. He sees you. He watches you. He enjoys you. He delights in you. Jesus says he knows his sheep, but he also says, my sheep know me. And Jesus, our good shepherd, he's always ready to guide you, to comfort you. But the secret to living a life guided by him is to live like a sheep, to depend on him. I think so often we maybe want a teacher or a consultant in our lives. But for Jesus to be our shepherd, we have to invite him to come and take control of every single area of our lives. A few months ago, as a family, we got a car. And my wife, Martha, loves driving. And she has driven every journey. Because when we get in the car, she just loves driving so much. It's just better all round if Martha drives. She's a brilliant driver. Absolutely amazing driver. But last Sunday, Martha was not well. And so I had to drive to church. And so I got in the car and adjusted the mirrors. I thought, okay, this is good. I've got this. Started off driving. Felt, yeah, okay, I feel like I've got this. And my son, Jonah, was with me. And after a little while, Jonah said, oh, I'll put the sat-nav, the map, on the dashboard so you can see where we're going. And I said, oh, don't worry. I've done this journey so many times. I don't need that. So we kept on driving. And because it was one of my first times driving in Brazil, I thought, I'm just going to be really careful, concentrate on, looking in my mirrors, indicating well, following, the rules. After a few minutes, I realized I had absolutely no idea where we were. And I had to delve and dig deep to the bottom of my heart to say to my 12-year-old son, actually, could you turn the map on now so I can see where we're going? Obviously, as soon as we turned the map on, we followed the directions, we were here in no time. You know, when I thought I was most in control was actually the moment that I was most lost. But when I realized my need, when I asked for some help, actually that's the moment that I was the safest and securest and the most well-led. You know, Jesus, your good shepherd, he knows you totally. And as you learn to trust him, to depend on him, you begin to realize that under his guidance, under his care, you're in the best, safest, and most secure place. Get to know the shepherd. The second way we can discover the work of the shepherd in our lives, see him more at work in our lives, is to listen to the shepherd. Jesus says in this passage, he says, they will listen to my voice. His sheep will listen to his voice. How do we listen to the voice of Jesus? Well, I'm going to share something with you that is 100% unoriginal. And this is the wisdom of the church over the last 2,000 years. I think it's really the three main ways. I mean, there are many ways we can listen to Jesus' voice, but the three main ways we can listen to Jesus' voice. First of all, by reading the words of Jesus, his words written in the Bible. To take some time each day, whether it's just for a few minutes, to read the words of Jesus, to read and listen. What is he saying to me today? Second way is by praying, by talking to Jesus. Again, even whether it's just a momentary arrow prayer. I need something. I need your help right now. Or maybe it's longer. Each day, talking to Jesus about everything. What's going on, what your needs are, what your hopes are. And then thirdly, being part of a church community is a way that we can hear the voice of Jesus. Being encouraged by gatherings, by meetings, by all the amazing people that Jesus brings into our lives through a church community. Last June, Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, I think we've got a photo of them. They're two NASA astronauts. They took part in the test of a new spacecraft, and the test was going to take them 8 days into space to test out this new spacecraft and then return to Earth. But there was a few technical difficulties, and Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore ended up what they thought was going to be 8 days. It turned out they spent 9 months stuck on the International Space Station. And they got back March of this year, and when they got back, Butch Gilmore was interviewed, and I wanted to play you a little clip of his interview. This is Butch Wilmore.
Hi, I'm Jay Wan with KPRC, the NBC affiliate in Houston. This question is for Butch. I actually stopped by your church right before I came here, and I heard that you were still attending your church services from space.
Right.
Can you tell me a bit about why that was important for you to do?
Well, goodness, the Word of God continually infilling me. I need it. My pastors are the finest pastors on or off, in this case, the planet. And to tie in and to worship with my church family was vital. I mean, it's part of what makes me go. And not only that, I also tied into Grace Baptist Church in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. A buddy of mine is an elder there and a pastor there, and I would watch their service as well every single week. And it was invigorating. It was part of what I need as a believer in Jesus Christ to continue that focus. It assists me day in and day out because I need that fellowship, even though it's fellowship from afar, and it's not like being fellowship up close, but still I need it. So yeah, thank you for that.
Even an astronaut in space needs to hear the words of Jesus, needs to be encouraged and led by them. You know, there are many different voices that we can listen to. There are many different shepherds speaking into our lives. You know, we have our own desires. Our desires speak to us, our desires for success or for comfort or for affirmation. Now, those voices can become the primary voice in our life. There are kind of more conditioning voices around us, maybe the voices on social media, the voices of comparison, telling us, how we should be living our lives, or the pulls of advertising selling us an even better way of life. There's an enemy voice. We believe that there is a spiritual enemy tempting us, telling us lies. I think we constantly want a voice in our life. We want a voice that will affirm us. We want a voice that will lead us, a voice that will guide us. But Jesus' voice is the one voice who ultimately cares for us. It's probably the one and only voice that really wants the best for you and for me. I think it can seem limiting following Jesus' words, following his teaching, limiting our choices and actions by following his ways. But it's the most fulfilling place because he knows what is best for us. You know, in music, there are 12 musical notes. A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp. 12 notes, 12 musical notes. And they can be played on different octaves and different instruments, but just 12 musical notes has created the infinite wonder that is music. One limitation is able to build the most beautiful, the most far-reaching sounds you could ever imagine. And very similarly, listening to Jesus' voice, obeying his words, this limitation is actually the path to infinite wonder in our lives. You know, are there any areas of your life that you've excluded access to the shepherd? Are there any rooms in your heart that Jesus is not allowed into? Because he's interested in every area of your life. And as you open up your life to him, he'll guide you in the most wonderful ways. So listen to the shepherd. And thirdly and finally, you can find life in the shepherd. For shepherds in this context that Jesus is speaking about, shepherds in the Middle East, the sheep are the shepherd's entire wealth. The sheep are everything the shepherd owns. They're his whole life. That's why the shepherds, they live with the sheep. They do everything for the sheep. They lead them and they guide them all day. And you may be thinking today, okay, Ben, this is great, but I actually don't really need a shepherd. I'm okay. Like, I feel okay. I'm making good choices. I've got some wisdom of my own. I'm happy. You know, I'm fine without a shepherd like Jesus in my life. Well, to Jesus, you are his prize. You are his great joy. The reason he wants to shepherd you is because he loves you and he cares for you and he wants the best for you. These words of Jesus that we've been reading today, they're from the book of John. And in the book of John, we find that Jesus is constantly talking about life. He says, I am the bread of life. He says, whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. He says, I've come that you may have life and have it to the full. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. He says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. His desire is to lead you into life, the best life now and forever. And he wants you to listen to his voice because he's so committed to you that he doesn't want you to go astray. And the thing with sheep is they go astray. Sheep wander off. They choose the wrong direction, or maybe they just get lost. I could tell you the story of my life by a few small successes. But the much truer story of my life is the many times I've made mistakes, that I've failed, that I've chosen the wrong thing, that I've got lost. And we all, like sheep, go astray. We all wander from the shepherd. But why is Jesus the best shepherd, the best guide? Why is he the good shepherd for you and for me? Well, it's because he lays down his life for his sheep. Jesus said in this passage, he said, I have authority to lay my life down, and I have authority to take it up again. What he's saying is he has authority over life and death, which he displays on the cross through his death and resurrection. And what this means is that Jesus is a shepherd who trades places with his sheep. He trades places with sheep who get lost, who wander off, who go down the wrong path. At the cross, Jesus is saying to us, he's saying, I will get lost so you can be found. He's saying, I will get sick and get all these horrible sheep diseases so that you can live a long, healthy life. He says, I will be attacked by all the enemies so that you can live free. And he says ultimately, I will die on a cross so you can receive life. Jesus knows you completely. He knows you to the bottom. He knows all the hidden, secret parts of your life, the deepest places, the unseen places. And he says to you today, he says, every mistake, every shame, he says he can forgive it. Every wound, he can heal. Every bit of darkness, he can bring to life. A few years ago, I worked at a church in London. And at the time, I was having a tough time. I was struggling a bit. I would probably say I was very low on confidence. And one Sunday at this church, there was a bit of a fuss going on at the back of the building. And I went to go over and find out what the fuss was, what was going on. And it turned out that a celebrity had arrived at the church. Now, I say celebrity, some of you may not know who this person is, but it was a famous British boxer called Chris Eubank had arrived at the church. He's more famous now for his son Chris Eubank Jr., who's a boxer, but he'd arrived at the church. Oh, and a friend of mine took this photo sneakily when I went to find out what was going on. And so I had a little chat with Chris Eubank. If you weren't sure, the famous boxer's the one on the left. I know I could pass for a boxer as well. We had a little chat, and at the end of the conversation, Chris Eubank said to me, he said, "Thanks, Ben. It's wonderful to meet you, Ben." And you know what? I walked away from that conversation thinking, Chris Eubank knows my name. And throughout the rest of that service, I was on such a high. I'd rediscovered my confidence. I was back. And towards the end of that service, I had a little bit of a realization. I realized, if that's how I feel about some famous boxer, knowing who I am, knowing my name, what would happen if I really understood that the God of heaven, my good shepherd, he knows my name. He knows everything about me. He loves me. He gave his life for me. He is with me. He will never leave me. He's committed to me forever. You have a good shepherd. You can come to the good shepherd today. To come to him, you've got to admit you're a sheep, that you need him. But as you do, he knows you by name, he loves you, and he will care for your every need. In Jesus' name.